Next, let me navigate to our website here. So let's say you like to see the style sheet right on this page. A couple of ways you can do it. You can right click anywhere on the page, and there's an option called inspect. Okay, a very powerful option. You can either right click and then of course click on inspect, and it will take you to the style sheet editor, or you can use the shortcut called Control Shift and I on your keyboard. Either way. So let me go ahead and click on inspect, and this opens up the style sheet editor where I can see my elements, my console, sources, network, timeline, profiles, resources, and audits. Okay. And on the right side, it shows me the styles, computed, and event listeners. Okay. Don't worry about all of these. We'll go through each one of them. But for right now, I just wanted to show you how to bring up your style sheet. Of course, I can click on the three ellipses and customize and dock it either on the bottom or to the right, or I can undock it into its own separate window. So for instance, if I dock this to the right, notice it shows me my web page on the left, and then of course the styles on the right side. And notice as I hover over each one of these lines on my web page on the left, you'll notice it shows me exactly what am I highlighting. So for instance, right now I'm highlighting the HTML language, and then it shows me my HTML, which is 980 pixels into 1021 pixels on the far left side, which is the entire page. And then of course my header and then my class. So this theme is using the body.home.page, and then the page ID for this particular page is page-id-4. And as I go to the next line, it shows me each element of my website. Okay. So here's my header. And remember, I just demonstrated earlier that it was 76 pixels, if you recall. Okay. And it shows you on the screen also that your header is 980 pixels by 76 pixels, right? Which means the length and then the height. Similarly, if I scroll down, or as I hover my mouse on various other lines, I'll notice on the left it shows me the actual size of my web page. My container size is 970 pixels by 654 pixels. Let me scroll down. Let's make some changes here to our style sheet. Okay. So for instance, let's say we're interested in, let me expand this. You can of course expand this, or I prefer it docked on the bottom. It's easier to scroll from the top. And then of course, if you're on the bottom, it'll be easier for you to scroll at the bottom as well. Okay, perfect. So here, for instance, let me increase the size a little bit. I need to change some of the elements here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make some changes. And once again to our header. Okay, so it's 76 pixels. And notice it tells me the styles, right, on the right side of the window. So if I click on the 76 pixels, of course I can change it to whichever value I desire. Similarly, if I'm interested in changing any of the values here for my container, I can do so. Or I can scroll down to my footer area, for instance. And let's navigate to my footer area here. And notice as I hover over the footer, it tells me that the footer size is 1343 pixels times 211 pixels. And that's of course the length and the width. And right now the background of my footer is black. I can change this color to a different color right off of the style sheet. So if I'm not interested in black, for instance, I like my footer to be a little bit lighter, for example, or maybe in gray shade. I can pick a standard color if I like. And as I click on each one of these colors, notice the color changes. I can create my own custom colors, palettes, and so on. Okay. So let's say we like to use the gray for now, and it shows me the area on this screen also. As I play around with these colors, you can then change the various color variations as well. And as soon as you're done, notice it tells you that your RGB colors are as follows. You can go back, always change to a standard color that we would like for our site, gray, or it can be black the way it was. Okay, so again, it depends on your own set of requirements. We'll leave it as gold. Fair enough. So here's our background changed. Line height is 20 pixels. If I change this to, for instance, 50 pixels, notice automatically the line height increases, right? If I change it back to 30, for instance, it changes the line height accordingly. Okay, so we'll leave it as 20. Similarly, there are other areas you can also change within your styles for your footer only. Okay, so whatever you select on the left, notice you'll change the properties. You can always go to properties and take a look at each properties of the footer area, such as your HTML elements are also defined in detail. And if I scroll down, all the way down, other are elements, for example. So you can pick and choose which function or element that you wish to use. Let's go back to styles. I can change my font style if I choose to. Of course, the font size. If I'm not comfortable with the 16 pixels, I can change it to 216, which is incredibly large. Okay, so you got to be careful as to what you wish to use for your style sheet. Okay? Or if not, I can just change it to 18. Okay, make it a little bigger, and so on. And on my left menu here, I have my elements and my console, my sources. That tells me where these are coming from. So it's coming from the root directory, and I'm changing the root file here, the index, or I can open it by using Control P. And a couple other options such as network, timeline, profiles, resources, and audits. Okay, some of these are advanced. I'm not going to cover in this course. I'm just going to stick to the basic CSS fundamentals so that you can change the way your website looks. So here, if I select the main header section of our website, for example, or the class, you can always change the line heights accordingly, and so on, right? So you get almost all the properties line by line on your web page that you can change. So let me next switch back to our dock this to the right side. Notice as soon as I do this, I get a margin for my entire page, right? So my page is 867 by 1278, and of course there's no margin, there's no border, and there's no padding at this point on this page. And as I hover over each one of these, I can always change the containers. If I click on the container, it tells me that the size is 750 pixels times 666, which is about this, minus the padding, and then our margins. So as I hover over the margin, notice it tells me the margin itself. Expand that. If I click on the border, there's nothing in the border area. Padding area is 15. So for instance, if I do not want any padding on either side, I can simply double click and make it 0. Okay, so notice my padding is all 0 now, my borders are 0, and there's some margins too. Okay, maybe I do not want any margins. I can delete the margins, which increases, notice, my entire page. If you wish to have only the left margin, for instance, you can have a margin of 20 pixels, and notice it moves to the right. So again, it depends on your own requirement, what it is that you wish to accomplish or prefer. Similarly, on the bottom, I can change my bottom styles, bottom width, the colors, and so on. So you get the idea working with the style sheet. So practice working with this, and let's move to our next lesson.